And she put me in a local orphanage with the hope that one day I would be adopted by a good family. And during this time, there was an American couple in Baltimore, Maryland, Steve and Beth, my now parents, who had 2 children, but were told that they had something called secondary infertility. So they just decided that they were meant to adopt. They went to a local adoption meeting and they got word about me, a little girl, all the way over in Russia who needed to be adopted very quickly to get my legs amputated and to proceed with surgeries and prosthetic legs. And they decided right then and there that they were going to adopt me, and if they were going to go all the way to Russia, they were going to adopt another child in need. So my dad went to Russia in March of 1993 to get me and another little boy who would become my brother. We came to the United States, and the first thing that my parents really found out is that they decided if they were going to do limb lengthening or have this little foot that I had amputated. It took about 6 months to decide what to do, and they ended up deciding to amputate this foot that I had on both legs with 3 toes so I could be fitted in prosthetic legs and learn to walk. What I was born with is called fibular hemimelia. It basically means I was missing the fibula bone, but something that my parents didn't know when they adopted me is that my bone would continue to keep growing. So it wasn't just like I had to get 1 surgery. Growing, I ended up having to get multiple surgeries, and that was very difficult. A few years after I was adopted and had my first amputation surgery, they did end up having a miracle baby and then another little girl as well. So I'm one of 6 kids. Growing up in the Long family was wonderful. It was incredible. I never felt like I was adopted, but I also always really struggled with this question of why me? Why was I adopted? Why was I born without legs? Why did I have to go in for surgeries every few months? And my poor parents, loved them, but they didn't have all the answers. They said everything that was right, but they even struggled with what to answer when I would ask, why me? Why? Growing up, I used to think that I must have done something wrong to be born like this and to have to go through surgery after surgery. Because when I would get 1 leg done and go in for, they would cut back the bone because it kept growing. And I would get that surgery done, and it's crazy because even as a little 3-year-old, 4-year-old, I knew exactly what to do, to jump on the cold operating table and put the anesthesia mask over my face and fall asleep and wake up with a cast on my leg. And it was really difficult for me to rest and recover. I was always on the move, and I never liked to sit still. I think I have an appreciation for movement because of all those surgeries. If we went in and got the right leg, and I rested and recovered, and I was just fitted for a new set of prosthetics and learning to walk all over again, then it was time to do the next leg. So I really appreciated movement and sports, and I wanted to do everything that every kid was doing, and I wanted to do it better and faster, being the girl with no legs. For a long time, my parents got me involved in gymnastics, and I really love gymnastics. When my prosthetic legs are off, I just get a little shorter. I've always said that my prosthetics are like really tall, high heels. But when my legs are off, I walk on my knees, and I'm most comfortable with my prosthetic legs off, very similar to shoes, so the first things that come off when I get home. So growing up, I liked doing everything on my knees. In fact, I loved doing gymnastics on my knees. But over time, my parents were really afraid that I would damage my knees to the point that I wouldn't be able to wear prosthetic legs. And I had fought and worked so hard to walk in prosthetic legs that at this time we decided to try a new sport. I'd always loved to swim. I used to swim in my grandparents' backyard pool. I was the first one in and the last one out, and I can remember my parents pulling out of their driveway at times, and I was still swimming, and them threatening to leave me as I'm still in the pool. To me, the water is a place of freedom. I've always loved the water. It's always been a place where I feel very capable and strong and powerful. So it made sense that we would look into joining a swim team. At the age of 10, I joined a swim team. I was the only girl missing legs, and I will never forget when I walked out on the pool deck and I was so nervous. And I only knew 2 strokes at the time, freestyle and backstroke, and I thought I was gonna drown and die when I tried to swim butterfly and breaststroke. But I kept going back. You know, I think for me, it's amazing to just be able to take off my prosthetics, jump in the pool and swim. Again, I love the freedom that the water offers. It's such an amazing place to be. And I kept showing up to that swim team. I kept showing up because I was never made fun of for being different, and I'm very thankful and grateful for that. I was treated like a friend and a competitor. And then I thought it was really cool when I started beating all these girls on the swim team with legs. From that experience, from that moment on, I really developed technique. It's very important to have good technique in swimming. It can allow you to move through the water more efficiently. Body position is very important, and with me not having legs to kick and to propel me forward, I really learned about the upper body and how to navigate the water to my best ability. I had a coach, who is still my coach to this day, who we would work on hand placement for up to 3 hours around that time. So between the ages of 10 and 12, I really developed swimming very fast. I was an eager learner. I wanted to be the best swimmer I could be. I wanted to be an Olympian. But little did I know that in a couple years, I would become a Paralympian. I was at a local swim meet around the age of 12 when an official came up and told my dad and my mom in the stands that my times were good enough for the Paralympics. And we had never heard of the Paralympics. We obviously knew what the Olympics were, and we knew what the Special Olympics were, but we didn't know that there was something out there for someone like me. So I went back from that local swim meet with my parents, and we researched it and found out that the Paralympics is one of the largest sporting events in the world, and the word para in Paralympics just means parallel to the Olympic Games. And it's for people with physical disabilities, where gold, silver, and bronze is awarded just like the Olympics. And it was in that moment, as a young 12-year-old, that I really, really wanted to try out the Paralympics. It ended up being perfect timing. My first meet that I went to ended up being the 2004 Paralympic trials to make the Paralympic team to compete in Athens, Greece. I was only a freestyler at the time. I had not developed the other 3 strokes. And I thought I was fast, and I thought I was gonna make this team, and I believed I was gonna make this team, but my parents, who are my biggest supporters, were preparing me that, Jess, you're only 12 years old. It's a great goal, but let's aim for the Paralympics when you're 16 in a few years. But little 12-year-old determined me, I just said, no, I'm gonna make this team. And somehow I swam really well that weekend-long competition in Minnesota. And then after that competition, the next morning, they met in a conference room where they were to announce Team USA. I believe it was 35 athletes. And it's so funny to me because my mom and my sisters ended up sleeping in. They just didn't even come to this Team USA announcement meeting because they didn't think I was gonna make it. So my dad and I went, and one by one I saw athletes getting called to Team USA, and then all of a sudden they said Jessica Long, and I looked at my dad with a smile that said, I told you so, and went over and stood with Team USA. And this for me was easily, one of the most exciting moments of my life, and I had this very big goal to win a gold medal. But again, I was not expected to make the team, let alone bring home a gold medal. I was lucky and thankful to just be there. To make finals would have been exciting. But again, you know, little determined me, I made a goal for myself, and I honestly thought the gold was the prettiest color, so I wanted to win the gold. So here I am in Athens, Greece, at the 2004 Paralympic Games. My parents are in the stands wearing matching shirts. There's about 25,000 people. I have been with Team USA for a couple weeks at a holding camp and then in Athens. And I had seen my teammates race, it's a 10-day long competition. We're all in different classifications. And then it came to be my time to race, my first race. And in the morning, somehow I ended up dropping so much time that I was seated first for finals to win the gold medal, but I knew that the world record holder from Israel did not swim all out in her morning prelim swim, and that it was going to be a real fight for gold. But again, I just decided that I was going to swim my heart out, and here I am at the finals. I'm on the block, and the official says, "Take your mark, go." And we jump in. It's the 100-meter freestyle, which is 2 laps, down and back. And for me, I'm always going to be really behind on the start. But it's not how you start, it's how you finish. So here I am, swimming, and later I found out at the flip turn that I was in 5th place, which is not where you want to be to win a medal. But I just kept going, and I put my head down, and within about 15 meters out, I remember breathing to my right when I probably shouldn't have been breathing. And I realized that I was neck and neck with the world record holder for the gold medal. And I remember saying to myself, as a 12-year-old, I did not come here to get second. And we touched the wall so close together that you had to look up at the scoreboard to see who won. And right by my name, by 1/10 of a second, was a little 1, and I had won the gold medal for Team USA as the youngest. I somehow went on to win 2 more gold medals, which surprised me and my parents. But the biggest surprise was when I came home and my parents started to realize, they noticed this new confidence that I had. Because before the Paralympics, I never showed off my legs. Again, I always really struggled with, why was I born different? So getting home from the Paralympics, when I had just seen so many people without arms and legs in a place that I truly felt like I belonged and I was a part of something, the biggest thing they noticed is that I started wearing shorts, especially in the summertime when I used to hide away. But for me, after winning those gold medals, it became such a thing of identity, being up on top, winning medals. After that competition, I started to develop all of the strokes. And I realized that I just felt this desire to win all the time. But at the same time, I was really struggling because I thought that it meant if I won all these medals and got sponsorships and won awards, that my parents were going to love me more, right? I think being adopted, there's a lot to unpack with adoption. And my life up until when I was 12, and I'm 30 now, has always been in increments of 4. For me, at the age of 12, I decided that I was going to train really, really hard for the 2008 Paralympics. But for me, I had put so much pressure on myself, and I ended up being ranked first in 6 events and second in 1 event. And I had this big goal to get Mark Spitz's record of 7 gold medals, and I told everyone. And here I am in Beijing, China, with my family up in the stands, and I was doing really well. I won a few gold medals, and then it came time for my 100 breaststroke, and I was a world record holder, and I ended up getting a bronze medal. Now, a bronze medal would be incredible, but at that time, as a 16-year-old, I was so upset, because I just thought that my parents only loved me because I was winning. And I remember not wanting to go up into the stands to see my family because of this bronze medal. Somehow I ended up getting the courage, and I went up into the stands and found them, and I was ready to throw the medal off the deck. But somehow, they found me, and they're hugging me, and they're saying they're so proud of me, and I was so disappointed in myself. And they ended up pulling me aside into a stairwell, and it was the first time that I had really ever asked this question to my parents and my siblings, and I just said, "Do you guys still love me, even with this bronze?" And I think it shocked them, because, they had never cared about swimming, they weren't swimmers, they were happy if I just finished a race. They never cared about the medals. They cared about who I was as a person and my character. It was after that moment that I came back, and I knew I needed to make a change. I was really struggling with the thought of retirement as a 16-year-old, But I also knew that I still had a lot left in the sport of swimming and Paralympics. And at the time, in 2008, you didn't hear a lot about the Paralympics. It was still growing, the movement was still growing. But I knew that I needed to make a change. A change with my coach, and a change with location. And I think it's very important to always be making progress, and if you need to, make the change. So I decided that I was going to move out to the Olympic and Paralympic Training Center all the way in Colorado Springs. And out there, training is very intense. You are training anywhere between 6 and 8 hours a day. And for me, this was a place that I just fell in love with the training. And I was preparing myself to make the 2012 Paralympics in London. And it's wild because, when I look back on my whole life, there's been so many moments when I could have easily given up. But from a very young age, even from the time that I was going into surgeries, I always wanted to have this mentality that I was not going to give up, no matter what came, no matter what circumstance. All the difficulties that come with being an amputee, but also an elite athlete. So it's wild, going into the 2012 Paralympics, I don't think anything could prepare me for what was about to come. I was just getting comfortable with my adoption and wanted to go find my Russian family. And I didn't realize that a Russian reporter was actually going to go and find them for me without asking. That's how it happens. Come to find out, they found my Russian family as I'm about to compete in a 10-day long competition in London at the Paralympics. They found my birth mom, who married my birth father, and they ended up having 3 children after me. And it was one of the hardest things I think I've ever had to go through, and I've gone through a lot of hard things in my life. And coming back from that Paralympics, I did really, really well, but I think, my mind was definitely in a different place. I came back, and around this time, I decided I wanted to train with Olympic athletes. I felt like I had done really well in the Paralympic world. So I came back from the London Paralympics knowing that, a Russian reporter had went and found my family, and trying to decide if I wanted to go to Russia to meet them. And at the same time joining a new swim team as I prepared for the next Paralympics. Again, my life has always been in increments of 4. And it was around this time that I started training with Bob Bowman and Michael Phelps, and I was swimming so much. I think I was swimming about 55 miles in 6 days, that I decided that I was going to face one of the hardest things in my life and go back to Russia and meet my birth family. And I ended up going back with NBC to meet her, and it was incredible. It was so very hard. And I realized when I pulled up into her tiny little purple house in a village of Russia with tons of snow, and she came out of the back door, and there was lots of reporters, and we were filming it, and she hugged me. And all of my life I had been so angry with her, right? I was angry with the way that I was born. I was angry that she gave me up for adoption. But when she hugged me, there was this moment of just forgiveness. And I think forgiveness is so incredibly powerful. So after I met her, I came back, and I realized that it was really, really hard to keep swimming when I wasn't angry anymore. Anger was such a comfortable emotion for me growing up, but I realized that I was going to have to adapt and really learn how to swim just for the love of the sport. And I ended up competing at the 2016 Paralympics in Rio, and I think for me, because I didn't take care of my mental health, this was one of my burnout Paralympics. I ended up swimming not very well, and I really, really struggled, and I was really bitter. And I was really bitter with a sport that had given me so much, almost to the point when I came back from that Paralympics, I was done. I didn't want to keep swimming. I was angry. I had never really dealt with meeting my birth mom or the highs and lows that come with competing. And now we hear so much more about mental health, but back then in 2016, it was, Michael Phelps was just starting the conversation about mental health. And I realized that I didn't want to be bitter. The sport has given me so much, so I decided to give back to the sport that has given me so much. And truly one of the best things that I ever could have done at that time was take up coaching. And it really changed my perspective. Showing up and coaching young girls every day and seeing the love of swimming through their eyes really, really helped. And again, I was on track to swim for the next Paralympics when all of a sudden, I don't know about you, but I did not think COVID was going to be that big of a deal when the pandemic hit. And I think it's really, really easy to have all sorts of things happen and to work on adapting, but when it hits you head on, how do you react? You know, I think it's very important to know how you react. And for me, I was really training hard for the 2020 Paralympics when everything shut down, and then all of a sudden, there was a postponement. And I think we all learned a lot, hopefully, in that time. And I think for me as an athlete, when I couldn't swim, I was really faced with this decision and this attitude of, control the controllables. I think if I look back and what I learned during the pandemic, it was control what you can control. And it's okay to be angry that the Tokyo Paralympics were postponed, but also let's look at all the opportunities that are going to come from this. And it gave me an opportunity to move back out to the Olympic and Paralympic Training Center, where I ended up leaving my family and my husband for a whole year to train for Tokyo. And it was wild training out during the pandemic. There was definitely a lot of protocols, and once I arrived in Tokyo, we had testing every day, family wasn't there, but I would say going back to the beginning when everything shut down and going back to control the controllables helped me get through a lot. And here I am, getting home. I feel like I just got home from Tokyo, but it's been about 8 months now, and I am definitely training and working hard towards Paris in 2024. But I think the really big conversation, and we still need to have this conversation, is about the mental health piece of competing, of everyday life. And I really, really have always loved this quote that it's okay to not be okay. And I think it's really okay to take a step back and to focus on your mental health. And I think for me, my life is always, I have been swimming so much. I've stood on top of the podium. I have felt like I've wanted to retire, but in order to keep moving forward, it's so important to take care of you. And I think for me as well, my whole life, I have always worked on having this really powerful mindset. I think in order to move forward from difficult moments and difficult things that happen in life, it's very important to develop a tough mindset. And I would say that tough mindset is developed in the small moments when no one's looking. I certainly know when I was a young girl, getting surgery after surgery, when I had opportunities to give up and I decided not to, it's in those moments. I really want to continue inspiring the next generation to keep competing and to be the best that they can be. But I also think it's very important to talk about, that life is hard. Life doesn't just get easier. And while you're developing that tough mindset to keep moving forward, I think it's really important to know that, I don't know about you, but life doesn't just get easier. If anything, I have found that life gets harder. But it's really important to adapt and to control those controllables, and no matter what you go through, if you fall down, to find a way to pick yourself back up. For a long time, I have really struggled with being an amputee. From the time that I was a little girl, I've really struggled with being different. I'll never forget when I was 12 years old, my brother was talking to me, trying to explain my birthday. I am a leap year baby. And he was telling me, Jess, yes, you're 12, but you're actually 3. And I just remember thinking, okay, let me get this straight. I was adopted. I was born without my legs. And now you're telling me I don't even get a birthday every year? And it was a moment for me that I just realized that I have this powerful story to share, that life isn't going to be easy, but it's very important, again, to keep moving forward no matter what. There were moments in my life that I used to look at my legs and tell them to grow back, and they never grew back. But I realized that I had been given this one life, and we've all been given this one life. And I don't know about you, but I don't intend to waste it. One of my favorite quotes is, the only disability in life is a negative attitude. I think that's something that you can control. You can control your attitude and the way that you approach every situation that is thrown your way. And I know for me that life is truly worth living with the best attitude possible, but it doesn't ignore the fact that there are going to be moments when you're going to get frustrated. And I know for me those moments happen. I know in the beginning of this, I talked a lot about why me, right? I think this is a question we've all maybe asked at least once in our life. Why me? Why was I born this way? Why did this happen? Why is that happening to somebody else? Why haven't I had enough? And I really want to encourage you today to change that why me into why not you. And I think that's something I'm working on to this day. You know, why not me to live this extraordinary life? Why not you to live this extraordinary life? So, if I can leave you with a few thoughts today, it's that your mindset is developed in the small moments, in those small details. In life, there's going to be moments where you fall down, and if you can find a way to pick yourself up and keep moving forward, you're going to go far. And try changing that why me into why not you. And I encourage you, once you leave this room today, to never ever give up when things get hard. Because there are going to be moments in your life that are challenging. And to keep moving forward, no matter what. Thank you.